When we sat down with Governor Snyder, we talked about a number of the issues he brought up during his State of the State speech, including two important issues that impact Detroit and the rest of the state: a new bridge and the city's finances. One of the things that we've seen in the new unemployment numbers, and as we've seen better employment here in the state, but we've also seen on a national level an uptick in manufacturing. Much of that is coming from the auto business. How confident are you that we are starting to come back? I know that's kind of a crystal ball thing. It's hard to know, and there are a lot of economic pitfalls that still exist with Europe and elsewhere, but GM is now building more cars than any automaker in the world, once again, for the first time in a while. Great. So that's got to be good for Michigan's economy, I assume.
It's great. No, the evidence is pretty clear that the auto industry is making a strong comeback, and you can see it both anecdotally and objectively. If you look at their results, both in terms of financial results and how many units they're building, it's good news. And the forecasts are good for next year. The main thing is I believe they've learned a lot from the last few years versus history. Because as we know, we've been around Michigan a long time. It was these wild boom and bust cycles where things would start to be good and they'd be really, really good, but then they'd be too good. And then all of a sudden they'd crash back down. The main thing about the industry today is I think they're being very thoughtful and about how they approach this so they won't get to the bust part of the cycle, overdo it and then have to compensate for that. So that's a good thing for our path, and it's very exciting. And they're not the only industry. Agriculture does not get talked about. Our ag industry is a great success story, and they're continuing on a really happy path. I've never seen so many happy farmers in my life.
Well, coming from a farm, it's either too wet or too dry. I get it, but
to see them really happy is, you know, things are pretty good.
What do we need to do in this state? Not necessarily the state need to do, but what do we need to do to continue to promote agriculture? Because you made the point, we have like the second most diverse agriculture production in the country, but I'm not sure that a lot of people in the state of Michigan know that.
Right. Well, the great story was I was meeting with a bunch of Chinese business people, and I talked about how we were the second most diverse and big ag state, and he goes, blueberries. Just said out of the blue, blueberries to me. Yeah. Well, what do you mean? He goes, we buy and eat every blueberry you can make. And I said, well, did you know we're the blueberry state? We're #1 in blueberries. And to put it in context, there are three main areas. One is the export opportunity, because globalization is raising the standard of living around the world, and we're the place to export. So we have a lot of growth there. But the part we could do more on, in addition to exporting, is more value-added processing. So how can we do more value-added processing on top of the commodities that we're growing? And we're a fabulous state. And the last one is continuing research and development. We have Michigan State, we have great food science programs around the state with our companies. How can we do more there to be innovative and to be a real leader? So those are the three areas that we really need to focus in on. And we've got a really bright future in ag.
I want to go back now to State of the State. I want to go back to the Facebook town hall meeting. After State of the State, there were those, mostly Democrats, not all, that said, well, wait a minute, where's the detail? And there were those on your Facebook conversation the following day that had a lot of questions, and some of those were pretty pointed as you looked at them. Were you a little surprised by either the questioning of your speech or the day after from the folks that you talked to on Facebook?
No, I appreciate that, and hopefully that really sends the message that people probably wonder on this Facebook thing, was it going to be a bunch of softballs? And no, I didn't even know what questions were being asked. Basically our team went through and picked out questions, and I think they did a great job of making sure they kept me on my toes, because it's good. One of the things I actually like, Rick, is when people ask those kind of tough questions, it's a chance to clear the air. A lot of people take the approach, well, I wish I didn't have to answer anything tough. Well, what it shows to me when I get those questions sometimes is, in many cases, a lot of times people didn't get all the facts, all the pieces. We might have been able to do better communication, and this is a chance to clear the air and hopefully get them on board. And the best illustration of all that's the bridge. We had $5 million of misleading ads out there. So the misinformation on the bridge, which is a great project for us, no Michigan taxpayer dollars, job creator, and ability to match road funds, is a huge win. But a lot of people were fighting it because they saw too many of those ads.
I want to get back to the bridge, but I'm intrigued by something that is being attributed to you, and you have not said it to me directly, so let me ask you this question. You said you might consider, you didn't say you were going to do this, but instead of doing the formal speech for State of the State, which is a lot of ceremony, for those of us who cover it, it gives a great visual, and there's, you know, everything is focused, and you've got all the people in one room, so it makes it easy to do the story. But you said you might think about, instead of doing that, take it directly to the people, maybe by doing a statewide town hall. And you did a town hall with us last year, and we had a lot of folks in there, and you talked, gave a lot of answers. Is that something that you would really consider, either in addition to or instead of just figuring out a way to do a town hall with a few hundred people and then broadcast to the entire state?
Yeah, well, I'm always open to innovation. I love that stuff. And you know how, in terms of the format I enjoy the most, and I think adds a lot of value to people, is the dialogue. Just like we're doing here, and like we did on that great town hall we did together. In a perfect world, a 10 million person town hall would be a wonderful thing. And that's where I enjoyed the Facebook town hall. I just wish I probably would have had some live people there. That would have made it more fun for me, because staring at a camel isn't near as good as looking at some good Michiganders.
I would be remiss if I didn't point out we would be willing to host that statewide town hall at any time that you want to do it. But let's move on. Let's get back to the bridge for a minute. I've got a couple of minutes left. You and I have talked about the bridge any number of times. I know what your position is on this, but I've got to ask you. First, let me tell you about a very unscientific survey, which you will not appreciate, but it is very unscientific. I talked to a lot of legislators, and I was over there all day Tuesday, and I was talking to people, and I said, look, what's going to happen with the bridge? And talking with people, primarily Republicans, they said, we think the bridge is going to happen. And then when I went back and said, how is it going to happen? They said they think it's going to happen without them. Is this bridge going to happen without the legislature weighing in on it?
Well, I haven't commented on that. I've basically said we're going to build the bridge.
You did. You told me that just before the speech you were going to build it. But my question is, are you going to build it with 19 votes in the Senate or without a vote in the Senate?
Well, I'm still talking to legislators. So we're still on a process of going through that whole analysis, and as part of that I'm going to keep talking to legislators, but I am clearly focused on the objective of building a bridge.
And so I take it from that, if the legislature doesn't want to go along, that's not going to change your mind and you'll still build the bridge?
Well, I wouldn't draw that conclusion from it. I'm not that complicated a person. I'm just taking the simple approach. I'm still talking to people about a bridge, but I'm really focused to say it's important we get that bridge.
One other big focus is going to have to be the city of Detroit and the finances of Detroit. I know you haven't made a decision, won't talk about that, but how important, how much time are you, your team, and the legislature going to have to spend looking at that issue, talking with Treasurer Dillon, all the things that have to go on, because this is not a long-term process. I mean, the city thinks they have more money than perhaps April at one time, but this is still something that's a very short-term problem that's going to come to a head within 4 months, 6 months, 7 months.
Well, hopefully it's a short-term problem, and that's what I would prefer, because this is something that I don't want an emergency manager, but I want to support the city and the city council and the mayor of coming up with a conclusion that works for them, that they can do difficult things fairly quickly, hopefully get them done and get on a positive path, because it's holding us back. One of the big concerns I have about the whole emergency manager situation, and again, it's not the statute, it's just how we go through this process, is all the negative attention on the city's finances and all the dialogue about public parties and how they're working together is taking away from a lot of good things going on in the city of Detroit. I would much prefer to say this is the rebuilding of Detroit process, or the reconstruction of Detroit, or whatever community we're talking about, and this is all about growth and doing good things, and as part of that we've got to get all this stuff cleaned up. But at the same time we should be working on a lot of really good things and being much more public about those, or vocal. Because this is, no, the idea of being part of how you cut, we're not going to cut to success. The point is how do you get to a conclusion where you can say, now we got a solid foundation we can build on?
Governor, last question. 1 year ago, you came out of the State of the State. You had bold plans, big initiatives. You and I have talked about it. A lot of people in Lansing, including this reporter, said it's going to be very difficult to get that done. You got a whole lot of what you laid out done. You had very high approval ratings. You started into this process. We know what happened during the course of the budget, during the course of the spring into the summer. Now here we are a year later. The approval ratings aren't the same as they were by a long shot. Does any of that impact you when you start making decisions about what you're going to do in the coming year?
Well, it's really looking for the long term. I mean, I was hired with a mandate for the reinvention of Michigan. which is more and better jobs and keep making a bright future for our kids. That doesn't happen overnight. It's really hard work. And I appreciate it. It's about people contributing in some fashion in sacrifice or hard work or something to make this happen. But you have to have conviction in what you're doing. And I have conviction in what we're doing, that we're doing a lot of good things that will make a big difference, and I appreciate the support of most Michiganders. I still get a lot of people coming up, most people coming up to say they support what I'm doing, although they may not agree with everything I'm doing. The word they usually end with is I may not support all of it, but keep doing it.
Governor, as always, we appreciate your time. Thank you for talking to us.
Great to be with you, Rick.